Hey, boys and girls. Welcome to another Friday and another story time. This week, we're doing a bit of globe-trotting with Katalina Noire and discovering it's really not a very good idea to stalk her with evil intent. Mysterious Wolf, written by Katalina Noire. Lena was walking through the park in New Orleans. It was nearly sunset, and she loved being there to see the colors. Many people were walking around. She even had a guy run into her. It was actually a failed attempt at getting her purse, but the shoulder strap held it to her body. She was about to yell at him, but he was already gone. Her hand twitched, and she was tempted to throw an icy water orb at him. Fucking human, she thought, continuing to walk down the path. She sat on a bench, suddenly felt the sensation that someone was staring at her. It didn't feel human, but damn, they were burning into her back. She scanned the people. Her eyes stopped on a pair of piercing blue eyes. Their owner was an extremely handsome man, to say the least. He smiled a bit at her before walking away. Lena had a bad feeling, but she brushed it off. Lena people watched for another 20 minutes or so until well after sunset. She started to get bored and sleepy. So she stood and walked back toward her parked car. A shiver went down her spine when she sensed someone behind her. She stopped, but before she could say anything, a smooth voice spoke. "Hello, gorgeous." Lena turned around to see the guy she'd seen earlier. "Now, why would you be walking by yourself? Don't you know it can be dangerous at night?" Her icy blue eyes looked up at his own intense eyes. She wasn't intimidated, but she had to admit he was handsome. "Well, who says I'm not protected? I could have a sword or a knife or anything on me and you wouldn't even know it." He smirked, which made Lena pretend to smile in return. "Now, if you will just excuse me, I'm going to go to my car and go home." Lena turned to walk away, but the guy grabbed her arm and pulled her close. He was stronger than she expected. He immediately took her other arm, stopping her from grabbing a weapon. Leaning down, he whispered in her ear, "Have you ever been hunted before? Watch your back, little demi bitch." With that, he shoved her hard, causing her to fall back on her ass, scraping her hands when she caught herself, bringing a small cry of pain. Her eyes were wide as she looked up at the man. His eyes shifted, and he quickly walked into the shadows before she could say anything. There was no one else around, so she flashed to her car and locked every door, her heart racing. Fuck! 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 She hit her bleeding hands on the steering wheel with every fuck as she tried to sort out what had just happened. He threatened me, and I don't even know him. Asshole! She started her car and drove home. Going inside the empty house, Lena heard a slight echo when she shut the door. She immediately went to the kitchen to make a pot of coffee. Fuck a fucking duck. Now what? After a few sleepless nights, Lena flashed to Romania. She needed a change of scenery, and surely the mysterious man that threatened her couldn't follow her, right? She arrived at her cabin, and as she sat at the table, she realized she needed groceries. So she flashed to the outskirts of a Transylvanian village and walked to one of the stores. It was beautiful. No matter how many times she went there, it always took her breath away. As she shopped around the small store, she got the eerie feeling that she was being watched. She was uneasy as she continued to shop for what she needed. She turned a corner and headed toward the front when she was stopped by a rather large man. It was the same man that threatened her back in New Orleans. He had that same smirk on his face, too. Lena was startled, but not frightened. She doesn't scare easily, especially after being a sex slave for so long. "Well, hello, gorgeous. Fancy meeting you here." His voice was deep and smooth, his eyes burning with sinister thoughts. He put his hands on her cart, preventing her from moving it. "I think we were meant to meet. I mean, how else are you here when I am?" Yeah, what a coincidence. Now let me go so I can leave. She shielded the fear from her eyes and voice so he wouldn't get the satisfaction of scaring her. Can I walk you home? Or to your hotel? He smirked again and leaned over the cart, closer to her, and he whispered, Hey, maybe it's that cabin in the woods, huh? This got the reaction he wanted. Fear rose in her icy blue eyes, lightening them even more. He turned and walked away as he said, Watch your back, little Dimmy. I will strike when you least expect it. Lena stayed where she was, knuckles white from gripping the cart handle. She took a breath, walked to the checkout, and paid for her food. She took the bags and walked from the store to the outskirts of town, then disappeared to her cabin. Once inside, she put the bags down and started putting up protection spells. Then she took care of the food, sat on the bed she used to share with Nicky. It helped to calm her, and eventually she fell asleep. Long into the night, Lena heard something and shot up from the bed, her hand shaking. It sounded like whimpering, as if an animal was injured. Getting up, she grabbed the sword she kept displayed on her wall. She walked to her kitchen door and looked outside. She could hear but not see it, so against her better judgment, she walked outside. This would be the part of a horror movie where everyone would scream at the screen, Don't do it! But Lena's maternal instincts had kicked in. She felt the need to go and check on the animal. Lena held the sword tightly, and she passed over the protection line without realizing it. She finally came upon a wolf, so, kneeling down next to it, saw blood coming from its side. Oh, you poor thing, let me take care of that for you. She whispered soothingly to it as she placed a caring hand softly on the wolf's side to heal it. The wolf got up, licked her hand, and then turned around, bounded out of sight. She stood to go back to the cabin when she heard a deep growl. She turned, saw the man who was stalking her. She held up her sword, ready to fight. How did you get on my property? I have spells protecting it. His laugh was dark, evil. Little confused, Demi. We're not on your property. I lured you away with that stupid wolf. He stepped closer to her. I don't think you realize just who I am, so I'll tell you. You killed my brother some time ago. I finally tracked you down, and after I finish you, I'll go after that demon of yours. Did you even think of his family when you killed my brother? She stepped back. She could only remember killing one lichen, and she wasn't quite in her right mind when it happened. I didn't know what I did until the next day. I don't kill innocents. He attacked me. He rushed at her, grabbing her by the throat. You killed him, and I will rip you apart. He growled low and threw her away from him. She hit the ground with a thud, causing her sword to fly into the weeds and out of reach. She stood, her hip feeling like it was on fire. Looking up at the guy, she gasped in total shock. He had shifted quickly and was now a full-blown lichen. He crouched low and growled at her. Lena was in too much pain to flash into her protective area when he rushed her, so she jumped up and over his crouched, rushing figure. She ran as fast as she could, not looking back. He growled and panted as he ran after her. He was gaining on her, but she was near her property. He jumped, his growl deep and loud, and his claws pierced her shoulder. She cried out in pain and fell onto her back, his growl now close to her ear. Lena made a dagger appear and quickly stabbed him in the shoulder, then painfully rolled behind her protection spells. The werewolf growled again, his eyes menacingly evil. He got up and bounded toward her, making her flinch when he slammed into the shield. Lena went into her cabin, holding her shredded shoulder. She needed a shower. Her eyes welled up from the pain. She didn't cry. She rarely cried now. But this pain was like the pain she felt when her back was whipped to oblivion as a slave. Not bothering to strip down, she sat on the tub floor and turned on the shower, letting the cool water hit her shoulder. Bloody fucking hell! Her accent came out as she yelled to no one. After she got out of the shower, she finally stripped down and started to clean and bandage her shoulder. It was bad, definitely going to scar, but that was the least of her worries. She was fucked, completely fucked. How was she going to stop this guy?